Hi guys and welcome to Witness My Minis. I'm Peter and today we frame sickness. Like I said in my last video when I framed out the Space Marine, it wouldn't be my last framed diorama. So I asked you guys what to frame up next and the answer was pretty clear. So I still had a frame over since my last eBay purchase. And I had a lot of questions since last time on how to find that kind of frame. And the only thing I can say is that keep checking eBay or the equivalent sites of your country and search for Italian style frames, about 10 to 15 centimeters in size. The process of preparing the frame this time was basically the same as last time, but this was actually a little bit easier since it was square. I used plastic card to build up a box on the back of the frame and keeping the depth at about 3 centimeters. I learned so much the last time that I did this. And I thought that I would do the same process again, picking an artwork and trying to interpret it in a miniature way. But this time I thought that I might challenge myself a little bit more with more details. So this is the artwork that I go with. It's such a classic and it has so many details and things going on in the background. The maggotkin of Nurgle, a putrid Lord of Blights, lumbers to battle, flies buzzing around his diseased body. Artist, Mark Holmes. Yeah, let's see where it goes. Just like the last artwork, the foreground is rather abstract. So I'll just try to interpret that as best I can. I start by using cork just to get the elevation that I need for the mini. And then I focus on all these organic shapes. These tentacles and round and all these bubbles and ooze. And then I notice this guy, a little Nurgling, right on the front. So I look through all my bits, but I can't find a Nurgling anywhere. So I asked Philip at Taxic Miniatures to print one for me. Yeah, I know, I don't have a printer, but I'm small time, you guys. When it comes to the mini, I get one that makes the most sense, that needs the least amount of kit bashing. So I found this guy, and basically he just needs to be reposed. So I try to get his arms and his legs in the right position, as in the picture. I do this using green stuff, and I don't care that much about how it looks in the back, since that won't be showing. So I just use it to get the things in place, and then I just leave it to dry overnight. When I feel that this is close enough, I notice something. There's something missing on the shield. So there is these small faces on the ball thingies on his shield. They are just missing on the sculpt. So I decide to do something that I've never done before. I'll try to sculpt them out of green stuff. So a couple of things that I've learned working with green stuff. So first of all, it's sticky. It's sticky as... So to avoid the worst of the stickiness, after you mixed it, leave it for a couple of minutes just to make it settle. And after that, dip your sculpting tool in some Vaseline. I start out working with regular, like sculpting tools, and then I remember for the smallest of details, I just had an airbrush needle where the tip was bent. So I just clipped that off, and then I have the perfect tool for all of these tiny details. I primed them in the black with Vallejo Surface Primer, and before I go in with my highlights, I make sure that the mini is in the right angle and position, so I can light him up in the exact same way that he is in the artwork. And because the mini is just pinned to the frame, I can just remove him after the lighting and priming is done, and then I can just start working on the frame. On the ground, I define it by using a lot of different greens, trying to stay away from black and white. So when starting on the backdrop, it's almost as scary as it was the last time. But then again, I was kind of pleased with how the last one turned out, so I had some confidence going into this one. But on the other hand, this has a lot more details. I start by defining the clouds and the composition of the piece, and as you see here, I use sponges and thick paints. It's very freeing to be painting this way. And when painting in the details in the far distance, I'm still very new to this, but this is how I approach it. I start off with a dark color to define the overall shape of the subject. I then layer lighter colors on top of that, the closer that I want them to appear. A very important step is then to take a dark color or even black and outline the whole shape so that it gets more defined. And to get it over the top, I even highlight the parts of the subject that will catch light in my scene. And these are my results. I must say, I'm quite happy with them. So when describing it like this, it's actually not that different from painting miniatures, is it? Overall shape, base coat, defining the shape with a brush or a wash, layering lighter and lighter colors the closer you want them to appear, and then lastly highlighting the spots that will catch colors. So are you afraid of doing 2D stuff? Comment down below what your fears are with making backdrops and freehand and 2D art in general when it comes to painting miniatures. If you like what I do here, be sure to like, subscribe and hit the bell button so you know when I release my next video. And then it was time for the mini in question. Going back to the artwork once again, I see there is very subtle color changes in the skin. And with this in mind, I go through the following steps. I start with airbrushing a skin color on all the fleshy parts using an ink from dioramas. I also go in with a purple ink from below to define the shadows even more. This bruised purple really makes the skin look infected and bruised, and yeah, you get the point. I then wash the whole area with a magenta oil wash and I let that sit for some time. And I clean that carefully using no white spirit whatsoever so that I don't get all of the oil paints in the process. I then move on to oil paints. Most of the colors is from the skin set from Scale 75 Flow paint set. I put out all the colors on my palette sheet and I get to work. And this step is truly wonderful. I just put down some colors where I want them, and then I could go read a book for my kid and put him to sleep. And then like an hour later I can come back and I can just blend them in with the blending brush. Smooth as silk. If you want to try working with oils, I do have a video about starting out with that, and you should see it in the corner right now. I'm not afraid of going too bright with my oils because I know that they will dull down somewhat when they have dried. So with that in mind, I actually pump it up the best I can, because when going back to the artwork yet again, we can see that The skin is really bright in some parts. The rest of the mini is painted with regular acrylics, mostly actually contrast paints. So I start with blocking out the different materials with different contrast paints. The green gets a dose of military green, the leather parts get a dose of snake bite leather, and the wooden parts gets wildwood. And as for the rust parts, I go in with gore grunta fur, and actually a lot of it, to make sure it pools. While it's wet, I go in with oranges and other colors just to get a variety of tones in there. And when that's dry, this is how it looked. So what's the biggest takeaway from making one of these frames? For me, at least, this one had a particular lesson. When we first learn miniature painting, the mini is always set in a general lighting, and all of the different areas should be highlighted in the same way. So by forcing yourself to paint this way, you'll actually be able to learn how to create a better atmosphere and a scene for your minis, and to evoke much more feelings than a regular flat mini paint job. Don't get me wrong, there is something to be said about a clean, amazing, crisp, heavy metal style. But then again, by painting this piece in particular, I learned something very important. As important it is to highlight, it's just as important to not paint or to leave something very dark, to pull focus. The darkest parts of this frame is just one color really, and that's what makes the sum of it whole works. Because it's not even that painted, you're pulled in to what is painted. So don't be afraid to leave stuff with less details or darker, just to pull the eye to where you want it to go. If you missed when I painted this one, there's a link in the corner right now where you can go and watch that video. But now, let me present to you the sickest of them all, the moldiest, the grossest of the bunch, my Lord of Blights in a frame. As always guys, thank you so much for watching. This video actually marks 1 year for me on YouTube. I'm having so much fun doing this. I'm still learning a lot, and I think you can see that by looking at my past videos. I've come a long way in this year. If you want to support me on Patreon, like these amazing people already do, you guys are the reasons that I can keep upping my quality and that I want to keep doing this. Thank you guys so much for keeping with me this year. I hope that there will be many years to come. If you want to follow their example and support me, the links are down in the description. I really like doing these kinds of frames, and if you want to see me do another one, go ahead and write down in the comments, what should it be? Should it still be an artwork, or should I try to do something else? It's up to you. Write down in the comments, and I'll see when inspiration strikes. That's it for this time, you guys. Bye!